so excited to here at REMAX Advanced Realty to join and partner with Inglenook of Zionsville here in just south of Zionsville Village. And I'm here with Jason Krause, and we are excited to introduce you to Ross Chapin. And Ross is what I would call the mastermind behind pocket neighborhood living. You wrote a book about it, you're the expert in it. And so I guess we can just kind of start there and kind of introduce who you are and how this all came about and who are you? Tell us a little bit about that.
Wonderful. Thanks for the introduction. So I'm an architect. I've been a partner in development on a number of projects. Mainly I'm an architect. I live in a small town not unlike Zionsville, and it's on the west coast near Seattle. And we noticed after living there for some time that there was a lot of big house sprawl that was coming in and around our small town, and it could have been anywhere. It could, I mean, you would take pictures of these homes and you go, okay, where in the world in America is this? I don't know. And yet the people in our town were people that were feeling like they wanted more community. And they didn't fit into the typical demographic of the mom, dad, 2.2, 2.3 kids, 3-4 car garage, and dogs and a big family house. And so what we wanted to do is to say, we wanted to find a way in which we could create a living that would be for all families in a community setting. The issue with a lot of the housing in development of the last 20-30 years is that privacy is maximized, and yet it's at the expense of a sense of community where it's easy. Okay, and so that's, I think, a challenge in our country.
Well, I completely agree with that. I think back as a younger generation, thinking about going across and asking your neighbor to borrow a cup of sugar is almost inexistent. It doesn't happen anymore. You know, this opens it up. It kind of brings you back to those moments of knowing your neighbor, knowing who they are, knowing something more about them than just the car that they drive when they go up and they put the garage down. You actually get to know them a little bit better.
That's right. I think in the last couple of decades and more, the idea of personal space and privacy has been really maximized, and so I think to an extreme, where we have our houses turned around. So what's facing the street is maybe a grand portico that helps sell the house, and a grand living room window which nobody's in because it's used maybe twice a year. Yeah. And where does the family life happen? In the kitchen, the family room, and the backyard, maybe the screen porch off the back, and what's out front is the street with nobody there. So what we've done is to turn the houses back again. Mm-hmm. But instead of just to the street, which it is, mm-hmm. it's also to a park rather than parking. So all of the houses here at Inglenook face onto a shared park. I figure that it's better than that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I have noticed in what you've described as, you know, the large privacy fences and people living in their backyards instead of out front and interacting with the community, that actually the front of homes, while they have been designed to be aesthetically pleasing, the porches have gotten smaller and smaller. So much so that I know when I'm talking with production builders and some new home construction, that there's only enough there to maybe cover you to unlock your door while you're coming in.
Right.
And that access probably is used less than 10% of the time because they're coming in through the garage.
That's right.
So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how much of a part the porch is in your design and the front of homes and that part of the house that faces the green space.
That's good questions and good way to put it. I think the porch has a real value. Certainly in generations past, the porch is where life was, when life was out front. And as I mentioned, when we turn the houses around and life is inside, that's fine when you've got children that mix people in the neighborhood and you've got dogs, but kids move along and dogs don't last forever. And so when we have a porch that is not used, like a key fumbling porch, as you say, just
Yes.
enough to get the key in the lock. That's a key fumbling porch, or a faux porch. You know, it looks like a porch, but it doesn't function like a porch. What we have here at Inglenook are real room-sized porches. And these porches certainly are an extension of the living space of the home, but they're also part of the nearby neighborhood. You can be out on the porch enjoying a cup of tea, somebody might be walking by. It's a place for a little nod, perhaps a chat. This is the mixing that happens in a real neighborhood. And so you get to know your neighbors in a day-to-day way.
So when you think about Inglenook, and we kind of hone in on the neighborhood part, we don't like to call ourselves a subdivision on purpose.
Yeah.
And we like to call ourselves a neighborhood.
Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit about the concept behind when you created this, when you kind of come behind this. Did you have an inspiration before as far as another neighborhood that just wasn't quite there, that you wanted to make it better? Or was this a complete brand new idea to you?
There's no new ideas.
Exactly.
There's no new ideas. I mean, if you go way, way back in, you know, the human cultural history, way back, we were tribes.
Yeah.
We lived in small groups.
Yeah.
And it's only now that we have both isolated ourselves in our own individual houses, and then we've got community, supposed community, that is spread out in terms of hundreds.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing is bringing back small scale pockets of nearby neighbors. That's what a pocket neighborhood is.
Yeah.
So a neighborhood may be not the right term, and when you think about pocket neighborhood, the wider whole grouping of Inglenook is a neighborhood, but then within it are 6 or 7 pockets of nearby neighbors around a shared garden between them.
Take us inside of one of those. Take us inside of some of these homes, into the pocket. Talk about that a little bit.
Before I take you inside, I just want to point out one thing. So we've been talking about community. We've been talking about neighborhood. And that's all great. There's also the value and the need for privacy. It's got to be in balance. And so all of our homes here are designed to preserve a sense of privacy and personal space. For example, if you get up in the morning and open a bedroom window, you're not looking at me, looking at you, and back and forth. So we nest the houses. Every house has a closed side with high windows or skylights, or other ways in which the home has a backdrop, but it's not looking directly next door. The other side opens up to full windows to the side yard, so you've got side yard living. And then the engaged side of the home has the porch. It has layers between the front door and the sidewalk. You've got the low hedge, a fence, a private yard. You've got the porch itself and inside. So it's not just like coming off the street and boom, you're right up against a door. Mm-hmm. So you've got layers of personal space. You've got nested houses. And in these ways, these homes help preserve a sense of personal space and privacy that I think is a need, as well as a sense of community.
Absolutely. I think you phrase that very well in the idea of some people who are new to pocket neighborhoods and the idea of it may feel like the front porch puts them too far out there. And I love the description of kind of those layers of privacy and personal space. So you start from the sidewalk, which we have that community green, and then we have the sidewalk that leads to the front porches,
right.
And before we get to the front porch, we have the hedgerow and a small fence line, and then you've got the space between there and your front porch. And then as they enter your front porch, they've kind of entered one level of the home. And then you have your front door, which still has that level of privacy before they get, you welcome someone inside your home.
That's right.
I really like those divisions and the way that you can still feel like you have the community, but also have your personal space.
Yeah.
One thing that I like about the space once we get inside the home is the use of the space and how you have even thoughtfully divided the space inside the home. With our main floor masters, they're tucked away at the back of the home with that living space towards the front, and the front porch as you might entertain. They're coming in to a community and living space that you might invite someone into, and still have your private space either in the back of the home or upstairs. So can you just describe a little bit about how you've gone about using the individual spaces? Because outside of that massive sprawl home that you kind of described in the early 2000s, were kind of taking over those small mansions and unused space and rooms that with doors that were never opened. How do we differ from that?
Well, I want to take a look at a house that is sized to the way that we live. This is not sized to the way that we want to appear to be living. But where do we live? You know, most of us, we enjoy being around food and kitchen and eating and conversation, and so if we design the house around how we live, around food and a relaxed, casual way of living, we're going to be happy most of the time. Now and then there'll be a time for a formal gathering, be a time for this. But most of the time we're living in a casual, informal way where we just enjoy one another. And so the house is designed for the main space of the room to be filled with light, to have a place that is living room, kitchen, eating area, all open to one another and yet with a certain definition. Lots of light coming in different directions. Again, opening out to the porch and to the street. This is the gradient between community and privacy. And it's the gradient we talked about on the outside coming into the door. From the interior, you come into the active rooms. And the active rooms are looking onto the public spaces outside, looking onto the shared